Okay, everybody, sorry about that. I know that we are getting maxed out. Everybody wants to hop on and see Bo. I even had a hard time getting Bo in, so I guess that's a good problem to have, right? We have so many people excited about this. Welcome, welcome. Could everybody hear me? If you could hear me, give me a thumbs up. Awesome. So welcome everybody to tonight's team call. I'm very excited to have everybody, and I'm super, super, super excited to have Bo on this call with us. Tell your friends if they can't get on, I will release the recording so that nobody misses this. I don't want anybody to feel that they're missing out on a lot, even though it is a lot. We will get the recording to them. So without further ado, I know everybody is so excited to meet our new CEO of Elevacity International Holdings. I'm going to unmute Bo, if I could find him on here again. I apologize. Let's see, where is Bo now? All right.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, awesome. I kept everybody else muted so we don't have any kind of interference in here. So Bo, thank you again for coming on to our team call. Everybody's really excited. I know a lot of people saw your last call because we had a lot of rank ups in our organization. But I really wanted to get you on to just connect with us. Tell us about you, tell us about Bo, tell us about your vision, and then I have a couple of other questions to throw in there. So I'm gonna put it back over to you.
First off, Maria, let me tell you thank you to you and to Mark. I appreciate you all more than you know, and our conversation the other day was great, so I appreciate it. And just know this, it's great because when we were talking, what I love about the right leaders, because there's the wrong leaders too, right? In every industry, in every business, in every company, in every industry, there's the right leaders and the wrong leaders. Just because somebody wears the title of leader doesn't make them a good leader. But what I loved about our conversation with the other day, she made it all about the team. It was all about y'all. And that really is important to me because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make the difference is if you focus on the right thing at the right time, things can happen that are great. So number one, thank you for being you and your leadership. I guess, so to tell you all about me, the first thing is this, I'm married to the coolest woman on the planet. Her name is Ronnie, and Ronnie saved my life. And I hope every husband would fight me on this. And if you do, it's great. I admire you for doing that. But I've just been very blessed to have married this incredible person who was not only a great coach, a great teacher, but an educator, but she was also a great builder in the industry and just has an incredible skill set for taking complicated things and making them simple. In fact, a lot of the things I teach because of her and the things that she has said to me that I saw from a different perspective. I'm 62 years old. I started when I was 30. I started in the industry when I was 30, before there was such a thing as cell phones, before TikTok and everything else. And you didn't fly anywhere, you drove everywhere. So you couldn't get on a plane and fly inexpensively somewhere. So you would drive I've driven 18 hours for a no-show. So you get all the way 18 hours away from your house and no one's there. But to bring you really up to speed to what we're doing here and how I entered this picture and how I maybe entered the industry. I got in like a lot of y'all, just on accident. I got in as a favor to my sister in a business 32 years ago. I stood my sister up 3 times to go to a meeting 32 years ago. I eventually went to the meeting because she yelled at me and got mad at me. And I decided, okay, enough already. I'll go to the meeting just to get you off my back because it's my older sister. I went to the meeting. I sat there. I thought it was goofy. I thought it was goofy in a lot of ways. All I'm going to tell you, if this isn't your first run, if you've done something before, I walked into the meeting and it was just overflowing with love and friendliness and all this kind of stuff. And I remember this one couple kept introducing me to people they knew and said, Bo, you've got to meet. This is Bob and Mary. These are our best friends. We love Bob and Mary. And as soon as Bob and Mary would leave, Tony and Sally would come up and they go, and this is Tony and Sally. These are our best friends. We love Tony and Sally. I've never heard more love and more best friends in my whole life. And I sat like this. I was that guy, Joe, I was that guy that would be in your meeting sitting just like this. I didn't smile. I was sitting, I was crossing my arms. I was listening, but I was just listening like this. I went home that night. I laid in bed and at 2 o'clock in the morning, I asked myself 3 questions. Simple. I'm going to tell you how to do it to yourself. I said, if I do not do this business, where will I be 5 years from now? And my answer was comfortable. I had a very comfortable life. I had a $2,500 house payment in the 80s. I had car payments, I had credit card payments. I was working 60 hours a week, and oddly, I was comfortable. I don't know how that's comfortable, but I was comfortable. I said, if I do this business and it doesn't work, where will I be 5 years from now? And my answer was comfortable. I was going to be in the same place because what, it was a few $100s to give it a shot. And then I said this at 2 o'clock in the morning. By the way, I'm sitting there talking to myself, which is odd. I said, if I do this and it works, where can I be 5 years from now? And I remember I remember like it was yesterday. I remember just kind of chuckling to myself and say, well, you won't be comfortable. And here's my point. I didn't want to die just driving on my side of the road and breathing my part of the air. I believe that God put you on this earth to be significant, to make a difference in the lives of the people around you, to impact people in the world. And I wanted to die doing something that I could look back on and say, it mattered. I mattered. What I did made a difference. And so I got started in that particular business 32 years ago. And if any of y'all are brand new and you wonder what's ahead of you, well, let me tell you what was ahead of me. My first check 32 years ago was $7. I made $7. My friends laughed at me. I thought it was kind of silly, but my sister told me, give it 2 to 5 years. Don't give it 2 to 5 minutes. So 30 days is more like 2 to 5 minutes. My second month, I made $150. My third month, I made $800. My ninth month, I made $2,000. My 24th month, I made $10,000. And in my 54th month, at the age of 35, I made $110,000. I was making more money in a month than I used to make in a year, and my life was forever transformed. It was never the same again. The most important lesson I learned on my 54th month from my dad, who was at the time the chief of staff for the longest serving senator in the history of the United States. I don't care how you vote, just vote. But my dad said to me, after I was 35, making more in a month like that, and he said, I heard you had a good month. And I kind of, as this brash guy at that age, said, well, yeah, I sure did. It was great. He said, well, let me give you some advice. He said, the more money you make, the more people will tell you how great you are. He said, Jimbo, that's what my dad calls me. He said, Jimbo, you're not that good. And then he said, the more money you make, the more people will criticize you and tear you down because they're jealous. And you're not that bad either. If you just remember who you are and where you come from and be kind to people. And all I can tell you is it changed my whole outlook on my team, my business, everything I did after that. Because I realized something John Maxwell told me one day in his studio. If you ever read any of his books, I was in his studio one day and we were just talking, and he said, you know, you can do little things by yourself, but anything you do that's considered great can't be done without a team. And I remember hearing that and it really hitting me. And months later, I was sitting getting ready to give a speech to an audience, and I was sitting backstage with another speaker by the name of Eric Weinmeier. He was the first blind climber to summit Mount Everest. And I was there to talk about success and leadership and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting next to a guy that can't see, and he climbed Mount Everest. I was more interested in his talk than mine for obvious reasons. And I asked him, I said, how did you do it? How did you climb Mount Everest and you can't see? And he said, I didn't do it. We did it. I said, well, what do you mean, Eric? And he said, Bo, when it was really hard and I couldn't see it, but I could feel it because I could hear people changing the way they were breathing around me. He goes, you could tell. He said, when it was at those moments, somebody would take my right foot and move it 6 inches. And then somebody else would take my left foot and move it 6 inches in front of my right foot. And we would do that for hours. He said, I would love to say that I climbed Mount Everest. I didn't. We did. It was a team effort. It took me back to John Maxwell, and it took me back to my dad. And that realization that if you, and I mean every single one of you, you have an opportunity to do something incredible here. But you can't do it without each other. You can't do it without your team. You can't do it without being the right leader in your team. So I've led a blessed life in this industry, just totally blessed. I was able to start a foundation called the American Leadership Foundation, where I was the president. I had 5 United States senators that sat on my board. I had the head of the DEA on my board. I had the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on my board. It was kind of a who's who of people. And I was able to speak all over the world on leadership and business success and things like that. But I stayed in the industry for 32 years. I built well, once you learn how to do it, you know how to do it. Once you learn the impact that leadership plays in this, once you learn how, I'll throw out this to you, once you learn how to drive a leg 20 levels in depth and you know how many leaders you're going to have in each one, and you know how to build multiple legs at one night and all that stuff that we'll teach if you haven't learned it already. Once you know that, you know that. You just know it. You know how to transfer the skill. But for me, I transitioned years ago into the corporate side for one reason. Just one reason, because you're doing what you're doing. Amanda and Sarah and Bonnie and Justin, you guys are doing what you're doing for what I call the luxury of choice. Your choices in life. You're not doing this for houses and cars and jewelry, because if you're just doing this to get a Bentley, you're going to quit long before you get a Bentley. I promise you, no matter how much you like them, you're going to quit before you get one. If you're doing this for more important things in your life, you'll stay the course. Time, security, freedom, things that really matter for your family. You'll stay the course, and you get all the other stuff, but you'll stay the course in your life for the important things, the significant things. And so I transitioned years ago after I built the luxury of choice in my life. I transitioned years ago into the corporate setting because I just got sick and tired of hearing corporate people tell me they understood what I was going through. You know, for me, I got tired of a president or a chief sales officer or a CEO when I would call them and say, "Gosh, I had a tough night last night. My best friend quit. I had to go over to his house and get him kind of excited again and kind of rekindle the dream." And them say to me, "I understand." Because I used to just look at him and say, "You don't understand. You've never done it before. You don't know what it's like to drive to a no-show. You don't know what it's like to have a meeting for a new person on your team and no one shows up. You don't know what it's like to not have been able to sponsor somebody for a while and you're thinking, gosh, what's wrong with me? You don't know what that's like to lay in bed at night and just have constant doubt. Am I doing the right thing? Am I actually doing the right thing when maybe there's other people around you tell you you're doing the wrong thing?" Most company people don't understand that. They want to, but they don't because they've never done it. And so I transitioned into corporate setting because I've owned two companies in this industry. I've done this before and I know how to build. And so it was a perspective I had that most people didn't have. Fast forward to now. My wife and I moved to Montana. This was her dream to live in Montana. So we just bought 180 acres in Montana. And I had that luxury of choice. I had a number of things present themselves to me about in a CEO role. And all I can tell you is this, and it was probably the easiest professional decision I ever made to come here. It wasn't the most lucrative decision, but if you build your life for a luxury of choice, you don't have to worry about that. But it was the right place to be. And here's what I mean. And then I'll bring this to a close, and Marie, you can ask me anything you want. But for me, number one, I wanted a place I knew I fit in. I mean, to all of you, don't you just want to fit in, right? You want to know that you fit, that's a good fit for you, for not just your skill set, but your personality. You want to know that it's with the right kind of people that share certain values, that really do care about other people, that don't just say, hey, we're part of the Happy Co. and we're happy and don't mean it. You want people that actually want to mean it. That doesn't mean that everyone's not struggling with something, because everyone on the Zoom is going through something. That's life. Everyone is going through something. But you want to find the joy in it, right? You want to turn it into something of value. And so for me, when I was looking at these, and I can explain later on if you want me to on why I made this choice. But the reality is, it was the most obvious choice amongst some excellent companies, the most obvious choice for a series of reasons. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else, because I told JT, who's the CEO of our parent company, I told him one day, I said, look, I'm 62 years old. I'm a young 62. I've still got a long time to go, but I've got less time to go than I've been, right? I want it to matter. And I want to put my signature on my exit so that being here is the last here for me, yet it's the most important here for me. And so that's why my attitude was when I was able to say to JT, look, dude, pick me, I'll do it, and we'll blow this up. We're going to build the most remarkable company in this space. And I believe we have an opportunity, because I know the backing behind this with Phi Chan and JT and some of these guys. We have an opportunity to kind of be bigger than the space we're in even. And I'm not saying that to you to hype you up, because I don't need to do that. I'm saying that to you because I know that's what we're getting ready to do. We just launched a plan into Asia. We're not just going to go into Asia. We're going to become a global company, and we're going to start that progression. Like now, I was on a call with Korea just a few minutes ago about some plans we're going to do when we're going to pre-launch. So if you talk about timing being important to you, and that's one of the reasons I selected here, if you tripped into this because of your sister or your brother or your spouse, let me tell you something. You had the best trip you've ever made in your life, but you've got to do something with it. Marie, I hope that's helpful.
That is so helpful. And no matter how many times I hear you speak, I get goosebumps about where we're going and what's going on. And one of the questions that I did want to ask you, but you know what? I want to do a little more content. So I was going to ask you, where do you see us in 5 years? But we're going global. I mean, we got big things, and I don't want to waste your time on that.
No, it's okay. That's not a waste of time. Let me just give you a 30-second answer.
Yeah, please.
One of the largest companies in this space is $10 billion. And I remember saying to JT when I sat with him in my initial conversation, I said, let me tell you something. If your goal is to play small and just have a nice little business, I wish you nothing but great success. I believe if you're going to play, you might as well play big. You might as well play as big as you can. And why can't this, not 5 years from now, but I'll also tell you, I was with a company that went from 900 million to $6.5 billion in 6 years. You can play big and you can play fast. There's a statement I love. It's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. And there's no reason on earth that we can't become, over time, the largest business of our kind in the world. There's no reason. The only thing that holds us back is you and me, because it's going to be built with you and me.
That's something. And we got a lot of work to do, guys. We got to hit the ground running, right? So I know a lot of people, everybody loves to hear you speak, and you are so motivational. So we want to know, what keeps you motivated? Give us some tips that keeps you going and gets you motivated, even when you had the ebbs and flows of your business.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, it's in phases like everybody else, right? You're going to go through this in phases. It's a learning curve you're going to go through. I mean, remember now, I'm the guy that wouldn't read. I didn't like to read. I got through the second oldest college in America by reading Cliff Notes and chapter summaries. I don't even think there's such thing as Cliff Notes anymore, but chapter summaries. Just look at that. I graduated literally from the College of William and Mary reading Cliff Notes and chapter summaries. So when I got into the industry, they said, you need to read personal development books. Tell that to somebody that doesn't like to read. Start reading books. Like, it's so easy. I mean, it's an easy way to go to sleep at night, but it doesn't make it easy to do. So, and they said, but do you want to get better? I said, well, of course I do, but I'm not going to do that. And here's a mistake people make. Of course I want to be successful in the Happy Co, but I'm not going to go to that meeting, or but I'm not going to be on AutoShip, or but. It's always a but something for most people, because that's human nature. Things you don't want to do. You say, yeah, but I'm 30. I don't need to do that. I went from not reading to hating to read, to reading, to liking to read, to loving to read, to writing books. And what I learned in that process is, on the other side of everything you do not want to do lives everything you want. Your dreams are not across the bridge if that's convenient and I'll do it. Your dreams are across the bridge if I don't want to do that stuff. It's not the stuff you're used to. It's the growing stuff. So for me, what I learned when I took my first personality test, I remember I was a driver, right? I was a type A, I was a red, all this stuff. Pick a color, pick a name, pick whatever you want to use for the personality. I was a red. I took great pride when I was 32 in being a red. Until somebody said to me, do you know the downside to being a red? You leave dead bodies in your wake. because I was the guy in the very beginning of my business that if you went to a meeting with me and you stood up to go to the restroom, I would tell you to sit down, that you needed to hear this and take notes. Grown men, I was telling grown men, sit down, you need to hear this. And they're like, okay. And it was horrible. So what I learned about, somebody also told me about taking your personality test, is the secret to your personality test is not to find out what you are, it's to find out what you're not, and to become more of that, so you can attract more people and work with more people. So when I sit down with somebody that's more introverted, I don't talk to them like this. I'll sit back and talk to them. Because one of the things that I learned is the role of the leader is not to demand that their group change their personality to suit me, but for me to adjust my personality to speak with them and to relate to them. So it was by being around the right people. I just stayed really focused in on to grow in this, to become good at this. I just stayed really focused on the people that not just had what I wanted from a business perspective, but from a value perspective. I didn't want to be a wealthy jerk. I wanted to be a guy that was relatable to other people. And so I learned I better hang around people like that. I started reading a lot of books. I'm telling y'all, read the 5 love languages. It's not just about your relationship, it's about your team. Read the 5 love languages. Read The Traveler's Gift by a dear friend of mine, Andy Andrews. Read Developing the Leader Within You by John Maxwell. Read Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I mean, read The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. So I started reading books and actually taking this to heart. The things that I resisted from a leadership perspective, I just gravitated towards them. I remember complaining about my upline. Has anybody ever complained about their upline? And you don't have to raise your hand because they're probably on the Zoom watching you. But I remember complaining about my upline to somebody, and I was a speaker. I was making 6 figures a year at the time. And I was complaining to the most prominent guy in the industry at that company. And he looked at me, he said, "Can I give you some advice?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Why don't you decide to be the leader you always wanted to have?" And it was like it took the wind out of me. It was like, oh my gosh, what a profound statement. Instead of complaining, I should give grace to the people that are in 1 month longer than me, 2 years longer than me. Just because somebody's in doesn't mean they're as advanced leadership wise as they should be. And we need to give them grace. We need to forgive people. So I learned to develop empathy more so than ever. And as these things started happening, and then for me, as I got older, I started to see it a lot different. I really started to see people a lot different. My wife was a single mom, building a network, teaching, coaching, tutoring, juggling her life. And yet she was able to do it with a smile on her face, making ends meet, and then progressing beyond that. And I saw this remarkable woman, she changed my life. And so for me, I look at you, and I want you all to know this. And when I say this, if you don't know me, and if you tend on the cynical side, it's okay, because I want you to know something. I'm so very proud of you. So proud of you. Because I know what it takes to do more than average. I know what it takes to come home from a hard day's work, or juggling the kids, or do whatever you have to do. And then you have to engage in a Zoom, and you have to rally yourself in spite of all the people around you that question you. You decide you're going to be bigger than that, and that you matter, and you're going to contribute, and you're going to do something for your family. And I want you to know something. I am so proud of you for that. So very proud of you. My wife and I pray for you. We think about you. We talk about you. You're going to love her, but we talk about you a lot. The people I'm meeting, the values with the people that I've come into contact with. I hope that's helpful, Maria.
That is extremely helpful, and we cannot wait to meet her as well. Guys,
Hey,
we have,
can I throw this out? Because I just saw somebody that says my hubby questions me all the time. Doesn't matter who wrote it.
Yep.
But let me give you some advice. Most time, it's like picking a company, right? You're not trying to find, it's like when somebody says to you, hey, what makes this different? You may have heard me say this before. The problem with people is they try to say, well, this is why we're different. Let me first off, I tell you this, every company in this space is different than the next company. Stop trying to defend what makes it different. What you say to people is, look, I know that sounds like a logical question. I really appreciate that. But if I could suggest you, it's probably not the right question because they're all different. It's kind of like you didn't marry your spouse because they were different. If you married your spouse because they were different, you'd have married everybody you dated. You married your spouse because they were right. It was the right person. It was your completer. It was that soulmate of yours. And people will understand that, and that'll help you change the conversation. I'll teach you what to do with it in another setting, how to change that conversation and make it work for you. But so I'm assuming the person that asked that married the right person. So let me say, this is what you say to the right person you married that's questioning you and maybe doubting, why are you doing this? You haven't made the kind of money, you haven't made that money yet. Why are you doing this? Here's what you say to them. When it's quiet, you look them in the eye and you say, I love you. And I know you love me. And I know you want the best for me. So I know that's why you're saying what you're saying about what I'm doing. And I appreciate the fact that you love me that much. You want to protect me from being hurt. But I need to tell you something. I want to accomplish this. And there are things that I'm growing through, and there are things that I'm overcoming to put myself in that position. So just know this. Here's what I need from you, because I know you love me. I need you when I'm at my worst and I doubt myself the most. Instead of saying, don't do it, all I need you to do is put your arms around me, look me in the eye and say, I'm so proud of you. You can do this. I'm so proud of you and I love you. Just do that for me. If you'll do that for me, I can do anything in the world with that. So go ahead.
Thank you for sharing that. And Crystal, thanks for asking that question, because we get that, every leader, everybody gets that question all the time. I have a spouse that doesn't support me. So that was amazing that you asked that. And thank you for sharing that, Bo. One question we get a lot, I know I've been asked, and I don't know how to answer this, so I would like for you to answer. They said, what makes Bo so excited about being here? Like what's the excitement for him? So could you tell us one thing that excites you about being with us?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things, but I think if to be just brutally honest, I'm that guy that actually believes when I would speak for people, I would have people come up to me and I mean, I was the keynote speaker for Harley Davidson for their 100th year anniversary. So it's those kind of speeches too. It's just not a networking setting, but I would have people come up to me after a speech and shake hands and say hello and all that kind of stuff. And I hear people sometimes say, well, listen, I really appreciate what you had to say. I had great parents. They told me that life's tough, do the best you can, but if things don't work out, it's still okay. You're still okay. I got to tell you, that's not a good thing to teach your kids. I love it when people come up to me and say that I was taught that if it's been done before, you could do it. That's a great message to share with your kids, that it's possible. Anything's possible. Now, I came from parents that weren't like that. My parents were major league overachievers, major league big thinkers. Both my mom and dad. My mom didn't even have a college education, yet she was one of the top 2% in real estate in the country. My dad was one of the 50 most powerful staff members in Washington, D.C. year after year after year. My brother's a Wall Street Journal bestselling author. I was raised in this kind of awkward environment. But my parents taught me this. Even if it's never been done before, you can do it. If it's never been thought of, you can do it. If it's never been attempted, why not you? Now, you don't have to have come from that environment. As an adult, I'm telling you it's true. So, as my wife says, your past is not a residence. It's a reference point. It's a mile marker in your life on the way from where you are to where you're going. You can't live in there. You can't live in that kind of world. What I'm excited about here is this. it's not just being a big company. It's not just that. It's oddly less about the company than it is about you, because it's the perfect company for you to be in. So it's the right place to be. But I want you to be successful. I want you to hit a home run. I want you to look back on your life and say, I did it. I want you to look back on your life when your kids come up to you and say, Mom or Dad, we did it. Look what you did. That's what now I don't care what rank that is for you, because everybody has a different goal. For some of you, your goal is just to be a part of this. That's great. Do you know the value that comes from being a part of something like this? How it's going to help you in your personal life? So if that's your goal, that's great. Some of you want to hit the highest rank multiple times. That's awesome. But for me, what really excited me was I knew this was the perfect company for that to happen. Can you imagine if every meeting you did would have thousands of people in it, and they were all ambassadors? Just imagine that. That's how you have to see it. They're all ambassadors. Because if you can see that, you can have that. And Maria, for me, at where I am in my life, I know I have a certain skill set that I can help people get there if they're willing. So it was just this perfect storm of circumstances where I look at this and I will tell each and every one of you, I hope you can't sleep tonight. I can't sleep at night because of this. And I've done this so many times in my life, but I don't sleep at night because I stay awake a lot thinking about what's getting ready to happen for this company and for the people in this company. So
I feel the same way. That's so exciting. All right, one last question, and then we will let you go. If you were starting this business today, ground floor, you're new into the business, new into the industry, or you're relaunching, what is the first thing that you would do?
well, for me, I mean, I beyond the couple mistakes I made early on, I mean, we all make a lot of them, right? Because what we all have a tendency to do is negotiate the price. We all negotiate the price of success. It's very common until you've had great success and you realize, I can't negotiate success. You just do what you have to do. But in the early days, I mean, I don't know. I had a dream board. Ronnie and I just built a dream board last year again. I mean, we still do this. If you do not have a dream board because you think it's uncool, don't take this wrong. Get over yourself and put together a dream board. I mean, sometimes you just got to get over yourself, right? Because to me, I remember my first a big event I went to. There was about 2,500 people in the room, and I was 32 years old, and I was all excited. And everybody left the room, and I stayed behind. It was in Tampa, Florida. I stayed behind, and I walked up in the Tampa Bay Convention Center. And I walked up on stage, and because there were just guys sweeping in the aisles, that was it, and the security lights on. And I'm standing up on stage, just kind of looking out at 2,500 seats. And this guy walks up to me who became my mentor. He was a guy that was helping me, much more successful than I was at the time. And he stayed after because he saw me stay. So when I walked up on stage, he walked up to me. He called me Buddy-O. That was my name to him, Buddy-O. He said, what do you think, Buddy-O? And I said, Frank, this is incredible. He goes, you like this? I said, of course. He said, all right, do me a favor. And he put his hand around my shoulder and he said, close your eyes. And I closed my eyes. He said, Bo, listen to me. If when you open your eyes, you can see 2,500 people sitting in those chairs, you will have this one day. Now, I don't know how you would react to that. I don't know what you would think. But for me, at the age of 32, just setting sail in this, I remember my eyes were closed and I remember saying to myself, please be in the chairs. Now, I know when I opened my eyes, don't worry, I know there weren't literally 2,500 people sitting in chairs, but I could see them. I could see them. And he said to me, you will never get what you want. You will only ever get what you picture. The reason people implore you to make a dream board is so you can see it. Because if you say I want time is not a goofy watch. Time is being on the beach with your kids, putting your toes in the sand on a Tuesday afternoon when everybody else is at work. Time is scuba diving out of a helicopter into the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. I've done it. Time is hang gliding in Rio de Janeiro off a 2,000-foot cliff. I've done it. Time is sitting on the Spanish Steps in Rome, overlooking one of the most expensive avenues in the world, and just sipping cappuccino and thinking, I can do whatever I want to do. Time is when your children are in the school play. You have time to go. You don't have to be at work. I mean, time is in the middle of the school day. If your daughter's the flower, you can go take pictures of the flower in the play. That's what time. What do those pictures look like? You put them in front of you. And when you get frustrated and you're doubting yourself, and you will over and over and over again, because that's life. When you find yourself in that moment of impact, you look at that picture and it reminds you why you're doing this. And people are like this all over the world. We dream in different languages, but the dreams are the same. So you get pictures of this and you put it in front of you. And when you're frustrated, you look at it. When you're excited, you look at it. You look at these things over and over again. So I did that. That kept me going. What I also did was I had 11 people in the beginning, and I couldn't get them to do anything. Have you ever had somebody on your team and you can't get them to do anything? You know, when you will get someone on your team that may be the first person you sponsor, and they don't do anything. Oh, they'll go to a Zoom and you'll think, oh, but I can't get them to buy anything. I had 11 people that wouldn't do anything but go to a meeting. I bought a van. Back in the old day, I bought this thing called a Sahara minivan to take someone with me to a meeting, because that's the only way I'll go to the meeting with you, Bo. Well, why don't you talk to people after the meeting? Oh, I will. I'm just not ready yet. And so they would go to this meeting with me, and my 11 people would sit there not doing anything but go to the meeting and the next meeting and the next meeting. For years, I talked about these 11 people and say they wouldn't do anything. And then it hit me when I finally got some wisdom inside of me. And I realized those 11 people did everything. Those 11 people said yes. And because of them, I went to the meetings. Because if it hadn't been for them who said, I'll go to the meeting with you, I probably would have quit going to the meetings. Those 11 people who for years I said didn't do anything, probably did everything for me, because it kept me in. And I realized when somebody says yes to you, you forfeit your right to quit. Can you quit? Of course. But I believe that when somebody looks at you and says, I'll do this with you, even if they quit, you have forfeited your right to quit, because you have a commitment that you've made that I'll help you. I'm with you. Two things I would have done differently. I would have dreamt bigger sooner, and I would have worked harder, faster, sooner. Because it took me a year to actually decide it's time to get going, but I was working every month. I was more of a, you would have looked at me and said, well, he's doing it. I knew I really wasn't. It was more a lot of show in it. That year cost me millions of dollars. 1 year cost me millions of dollars, because I calculated it later. It was millions of dollars that 1 year cost me, because the compounding effect of the income you make is immense. Remember, everything you do compounds. Goodwill compounds over time. It multiplies exponentially over time. Bad will compounds over time. Kindness compounds over time. Everything compounds over time. And the thing I would encourage each and every one of you to do is to recognize the role that your personal leadership plays in your success. That doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert. Sociologists tell us that the shyest person watching this will impact 10,000 people in their life. So if you're shy, embrace it. It's power. You have power. In whatever personality that God blessed you with, you have power. You are more than a conqueror in your life. And when you recognize that fact, regardless if you're introverted or extroverted, your ability to lead yourself first, act like you have 1,000 people on your team today. How would you behave if you had 1,000 people on your team today? Would you be more kind to people? Would you deliver the message in a more empathetic way? Could you be strong and caring all at the same time? That's a secret. That's power. It gives you the ability to embrace people and they feel safe with you. And the more you develop that leadership skill inside of you, because it's there, it's saying, develop, I'm here, do it. You'll do it. And the last thing is this. Don't just leave this Zoom and go back to your life. Leave this Zoom and go diamond. Leave this Zoom and go ambassador. It's a decision you make. Whatever you're going through, you are a lion. You are an absolute lion. You can do anything you put your mind to. And I'm honored to be in this with you, more than you know. And God bless each and every one of you. And thank you. And Marie, if there's anything else, I'm happy to do it.
That was amazing. You put an amazing, beautiful perspective on so many different things that everybody needed to hear this. This was just great. We are so blessed to have you. We're so blessed to have you leading us and to providing us with so much knowledge and value. And we cannot wait to continue to learn from you in the future. Thank you so much for taking your time to be with us tonight. I know it's late at night for a lot of people, and we're just so thankful to have you. Thank you so much, Bo. Good night.
Thank you for having me. God bless you. Thank you, Maria. You're awesome.
You too. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.